They say a great mystery begins not with a question, but with something missing. On the morning of August 22, 1911, a guard at the Louvre entered the Salon Care and froze. The wall was bare. The frame was empty. The Mona Lisa was gone. For the next 24 hours, chaos consumed the world's most famous museum. No one could explain it. No one saw a thing. The most recognized face in art had simply vanished. Some said it was an inside job. Others whispered of anarchists or secret collectors. Even Pablo Picasso was questioned. But the truth, when it finally surfaced, was far stranger. Because the man who stole the Mona Lisa wasn't a criminal mastermind. He was a simple handyman. And for 2 years, he kept her hidden in plain sight. This is the true story of Vincenzo Peruggia, the man who tried to steal the Mona Lisa and almost succeeded. Paris, Monday morning, August 21, 1911. The city woke beneath a sky the color of burnt ash, the kind of morning that feels tired before it even begins. Inside the Louvre, a janitor shuffled through the marble corridors, his footsteps echoing off the ancient walls. He had no idea he was about to stumble upon one of the greatest crimes in modern history. When he entered the Salon Care, one of the Louvre's proudest rooms, he stopped. Something was missing. On the far wall, between two larger paintings, hung nothing but an empty space. For iron pegs stuck out from the plaster like exposed bones. The Mona Lisa was gone. The small portrait that had smiled over generations of visitors had simply vanished. All that remained was the faint outline of her frame, a ghostly imprint on the wall where she'd hung for centuries. At first, no one panicked. It was a Monday. The museum was closed to the public. Workers often removed paintings for cleaning or photography. But as the hours passed, and no one came forward to explain where she was, a quiet unease began to spread through the staff. By noon, that unease had turned into dread. Guards checked the photographer's logs, no record of removal. Restorers denied touching her. The museum director arrived in disbelief. He stared at the empty wall for a long, silent moment, then whispered only 2 words. "It's impossible." By late afternoon, panic had turned to chaos. Police sealed off every exit, every staircase, every dusty storage corridor. Workers were searched. Painters and janitors were questioned. But the painting, 30 inches of poplar wood and oil, had vanished without a trace. Outside the museum, word spread through Paris like a spark in dry grass. By nightfall, newspapers screamed the same headline across Europe. The Mona Lisa, stolen from the Louvre. For the first time in history, the world realized that even the most guarded treasure on earth could simply disappear. And with that disappearance came something else. An obsession. Because whoever had taken her hadn't stolen gold, or jewels, or money. They had stolen beauty itself. Some said it was a prank. Others whispered of spies, or secret collectors, or a plot to humiliate France. But the truth was far stranger. The thief was already far away, blending in among the white-coated workers of the museum. Calm, unnoticed, carrying history in his hands. While detectives scoured Paris for professional thieves and international art smugglers, the real culprit walked freely among them. Quiet, unremarkable man, an Italian immigrant, a handyman who once worked inside the Louvre itself. His name was Vincenzo Peruggia. He wasn't a criminal mastermind. He wasn't rich or educated or even particularly daring. But he was driven by something far stranger than greed. Vincenzo was a painter's assistant, a glazier by trade. He helped build the protective glass cases for many of the museum's treasures. Day after day, he worked beneath the Mona Lisa's soft smile, adjusting frames, cleaning dust, breathing in the still air of history. Somewhere between the brushstrokes and the silence, something began to grow inside him, a quiet obsession. He admired her, not as a thief admires a prize, but as a patriot admires a lost relic. You see, Vincenzo was Italian, and though the Mona Lisa hung proudly in Paris, he believed she belonged to Italy, the land of Leonardo da Vinci. To him, the painting wasn't France's treasure. It was his country's stolen daughter. That idea festered in his mind, twisting itself into conviction. Each time he passed the gallery, he felt the same burning thought. She shouldn't be here. And then, one morning, he decided to do something about it. It was August 20th, 1911. The Louvre was closed for cleaning, and Vincenzo arrived early, dressed in the museum's standard white smock. He blended in perfectly with the workers. No one questioned him. He walked calmly to the salon care, stepped into the quiet room, and stood before the Mona Lisa. For a moment, he simply looked at her. Her expression, calm, knowing, eternal. It almost dared him to act. He lifted the painting from the wall, removed its frame, and wrapped it carefully in the white cloth of his uniform. Then, carrying it under his arm, he walked down the corridor, opened a small service door, and vanished into the stairwell. Inside that stairwell, he realized the door to the courtyard was locked. For a brief moment, his heart must have frozen. The greatest art heist in history stopped by a locked door. But fate intervened. A plumber passing by found him struggling and opened the door without suspicion. Moments later, Vincenzo Peruggia stepped out of the Louvre into the bright Paris morning, carrying the Mona Lisa beneath his coat. No one stopped him. No one noticed. And just like that, the world's most famous painting was gone. He took a train back to his small apartment on Rue de El Hospital, St. Louis. A cramped room with little more than a bed, a stove, and a wooden cupboard. There, he slid the Mona Lisa inside beneath a false panel. And for more than 2 years, she stayed hidden, silent and unseen, just feet away from where he slept. In the streets outside, Paris buzzed with gossip, suspicion, and scandal. The police questioned artists, guards, and even the great Pablo Picasso himself. But no one suspected the quiet handyman who had once worked in the museum's halls. While the world searched for her, Vincenzo went to work, ate his dinners, and slept peacefully beside a secret that would outlive them all. He had done it. He had reclaimed her. And in his mind, he was not a thief, but a hero. Still, late at night, when the city went silent, he would sometimes rise from his bed, open the cupboard, and stare into her painted eyes. Her smile seemed different in the dim light, less gentle, more knowing, as if she understood what he had done, and was waiting for the day the world would find out. If you'd like to keep traveling deeper into history's forgotten corners, stay with us, and subscribe if you haven't already. In the days that followed the theft, Paris descended into disbelief. The Mona Lisa gone. An entire nation felt humiliated. How could the Louvre, the pride of France, lose its most precious treasure? The police combed through every corner of the museum. They found fingerprints, smudges, and a single doorknob missing from the exit where the thief had escaped. But the painting itself had vanished as though swallowed by the walls. Soon, the search spilled out into the streets of Paris. Every ship leaving the port of Le Havre was inspected. Every border crossing was watched. Newspapers offered rewards for any clue. Still nothing. Across the world, the story exploded. People who had never even heard of the Mona Lisa before were suddenly obsessed. Her image appeared in papers from New York to Tokyo. Theft had transformed her into legend. And in a strange way, the absence of her smile made her even more powerful. For 2 years, that empty space in the Louvre became its own kind of exhibit. Crowds came not to see art, but to see the void where art had been. A blank wall, a missing face. The police, desperate for progress, began arresting anyone who might possibly be involved. Even the artist Pablo Picasso was briefly detained. He had purchased stolen statues before, small artifacts, and suspicion was enough. But it led nowhere. He was released, angry, humiliated, and more famous than ever. The investigation turned cold. The public lost faith. The newspapers stopped printing front-page headlines about the missing painting. And somewhere in the backstreets of Paris, Vincenzo Peruggia lived quietly with the world's most wanted artwork hidden in his apartment. He read the newspapers every day. He saw the chaos he had caused, the fury, the confusion, the disbelief. He must have felt proud, even justified. But pride can be a dangerous companion. It whispers that you were right, that no one will ever catch you, In his small apartment, the painting rested in silence. 2 years of dust, 2 winters of still air and low light. If she could have spoken, perhaps she would have asked to go home. But her captor believed he had already done that. He waited for the perfect moment, a chance to return her to Italy, where he believed she truly belonged. He imagined himself a national hero, welcomed with open arms. But time passed, and his fantasy began to rot. The newspapers no longer talked about her. France had moved on. The world had moved on. And so Vincenzo decided to act. He packed the Mona Lisa into a simple wooden trunk and took a train across the Alps into Italy. After 2.5 years, he was finally bringing her home. He stayed at a modest hotel in Florence, keeping the painting hidden beneath the false bottom of a box. And there, for the first time in years, she breathed Italian air again. He waited until the time felt right. Then, one morning, he reached out to an art dealer, a respected man named Alfredo Geri, and sent a letter. He claimed to possess the missing masterpiece and offered to return it to its rightful home for a small fee. When the dealer read the note, he couldn't tell if it was madness or history unfolding before him. He agreed to meet, but quietly he also alerted the authorities. What followed would bring the most unbelievable chapter of the story. The moment the Mona Lisa finally looked upon the man who had stolen her, and the world that had nearly forgotten. For more than 2 years, the Mona Lisa lived in darkness, hidden behind a wooden panel in a cramped Paris apartment, far from the lights and whispers of the Louvre. She became a secret, silent, captive, waiting. And above her, Vincenzo Peruggia lived an ordinary life. He worked odd jobs, ate simple meals, drank wine at the local cafe, surrounded by people who had no idea that the world's most famous painting sat just meters from where he slept. At first, he felt victorious. He had done what no one else could. He had taken back what he believed was rightfully Italy's. He imagined himself as a patriot, not a thief. In his mind, he hadn't stolen, he had restored. But pride is a delicate thing. It doesn't last forever. Months turned into years, and the thrill began to fade. The world outside went on. New scandals, new wars, new stories. The theft that once shocked the planet was now fading into history. Inside that tiny room, time stood still. The air grew stale. The colors of the painting, once alive under museum lights, dimmed in the shadows. And at night, when the street outside went quiet, Vincenzo would rise from his bed, light a candle, and pull the painting from its hiding place. He would stare at her for hours, that same smile, soft, secretive, eternal. Only now it seemed to mock him. It was no longer a smile of mystery, but of judgment. He began to talk to her. In the dim candlelight, he told her why he did it, how France had stolen her centuries ago, how he would one day bring her home. Maybe he wanted forgiveness, maybe he wanted approval, but the smile never changed. It never did. And so, slowly, something inside him began to fracture. The weight of his secret grew heavier than the painting itself. He could no longer tell if he had done something noble or something monstrous. He watched from a distance as France replaced her empty frame with other works. Visitors came and went, staring at the blank space, wondering where she was. But no one ever suspected him, the quiet Italian worker with dust on his sleeves. By the end of 1913, Vincenzo was tired. Tired of hiding. Tired of waiting for glory that never came. He had convinced himself that the Italian people would see him as a hero. He truly believed that. So he packed her up, the woman the world had been searching for, into a simple wooden trunk. He bought a train ticket under a false name and headed south toward Italy. The journey was long and restless. Every sound in the train corridor made his heart jump. Every customs officer's glance felt like an accusation. But somehow no one checked the box. No one looked twice at the man in the corner seat with trembling hands and a secret in the luggage rack above his head. When he finally arrived in Florence, he rented a small hotel room. For 2 days he kept her hidden there, afraid to move. Then he sent a letter, polite, formal, and full of pride, to an art dealer named Alfredo Geri. He told the man he was an Italian patriot who had recovered a stolen treasure. He said he wished to return the painting to Italy, not for profit but for honor. But even in that letter, there was a shadow of greed, a request for a modest reward, pride and desperation hand in hand. When Jerry read the letter, he wasn't sure what to think. It sounded impossible. And yet, what if it wasn't? He agreed to meet the mysterious Leonardo, the alias Vincenzo had used. Together, they would open the trunk, and history would breathe again. Florence, December 1913. A cold winter morning, shrouded in fog. Inside a modest hotel room near the Piazza della Signoria, Vincenzo Peruggia stood beside a wooden trunk. Inside it, a legend. The art dealer, Alfredo Jerry, arrived accompanied by Giovanni Paggi, the director of Florence's Uffizi Gallery. Both men were cautious, unsure what to expect. Peruggia greeted them with nervous politeness, the kind of politeness that trembles at the edge of fear. He spoke softly. He told them he had retrieved the Mona Lisa from foreign hands, that he had kept her safe for Italy, and that he wished only to see her returned home. Then, with hands that shook slightly, he lifted the lid. Wrapped in a layer of cloth, resting atop a false bottom, was a familiar face. The mysterious woman with the half-smile, La Gioconda. For a moment, no one spoke. The room seemed to fall away. It was as if they were staring into the eyes of a ghost. Jerry and Paggi examined the painting under the dim light. The cracks in the varnish, the brushwork, the faint sfumato, every detail matched. It was her. After 2 years and 4 months, she was finally found. They thanked Vincenzo, calm and polite, but behind their words was something else. Suspicion. They convinced him to leave the painting in their care for safekeeping, and promised to contact the authorities to verify its authenticity. He agreed, confident that the world would soon hail him as a hero. But within hours, the police arrived at his door. He didn't resist. When they asked why he did it, he said the same words again and again. "I wanted to bring her home." The news spread like wildfire. The Mona Lisa has been found. Crowds flooded the Uffizi. People wept, shouted, and cheered as the painting was displayed for 2 brief weeks. Her first and only return to Italy since Leonardo painted her. Then, quietly, she was sent back to Paris. Back to the Louvre. Back to her frame where she still sits today. Vincenzo Peruggia stood trial in Florence. The court saw him not as a hardened criminal, but as a misguided patriot. A man who believed, however wrongly, that he was reclaiming what his country had lost. He was sentenced to just over a year in prison and served only 7 months. When he was released, he faded into obscurity. He married, had a daughter, and eventually opened a small hardware store. He died in 1925, at the age of 44. His name mostly forgotten except in the quiet footnotes of art history. But the story didn't end there. After the theft, the Mona Lisa became something more than a painting. Her fame exploded. She went from masterpiece to myth, from art to obsession. And perhaps that's the real legacy of Vincenzo Peruggia. By stealing her, he didn't just change art history. He created a global icon, a woman whose smile now draws millions every year. A smile that survived theft, secrecy, and time itself. So when you stand before her today, behind the glass and the crowd, remember this: for 2 silent years, she was hidden in the shadows of an ordinary man's room. And in that darkness, she became eternal. A century has passed since the day she vanished, and yet, her smile still draws millions. Each year, every day, to stand in silent awe. The Mona Lisa's theft made her what she is today, not just a masterpiece, but a legend. Behind the glass, she seems untouchable. But for 2 years, she belonged to one man, a dreamer who thought he was righting a wrong. Perhaps that's the strange beauty of this story. A man's delusion gave the world its greatest obsession. A stolen painting became the most famous face on earth. And through it all, that smile never changed. Still calm, still secretive, still watching us, as if she remembers everything. If the shadows of history intrigue you, follow them here. Subscribe and step into the next forgotten tale.